Welcome to Joe's Astrology, and we're talking about Mars in Pisces. Mars in Pisces will correlate to a soul that desires to penetrate and energize all of the desires that have been held in an unconscious state over many lifetimes. So he's talking about Mars desires and Neptune. Desires to penetrate and energize all of the desires. Neptune, all of the desires of the past, of the unconscious, over many recent lifetimes. In evolutionary terms, Mars in Pisces reflects a soul that desires to bring to culmination an entire cycle of evolutionary development so that a brand new cycle can begin. In order for this to occur, the soul must now act on all the remaining desires that have been held at an unconscious level and thus not acted on. For this to occur, for the desires to manifest within the subjective conscious awareness of the personality that the soul creates, Mars in Pisces will energize the pineal gland within the brain. So I want to go back here. It says the soul must now act on all the remaining desires that have been held at an unconscious level and thus not acted on. So we could see, with that being said, we could imagine that a Mars in Pisces person might act a little bit weird. They might act a little bit out of sorts, not normal. They might, something in the life, like you think of someone just quitting their job or quitting their current life and just moving to another area, starting over. I haven't seen this personally, but we can imagine that this something like this had to occur. I have seen Mars in Pisces. I think of Andrew Tate has Mars in Pisces. His Mars is conjunct Jupiter. Someone who's has a strong desire to be a teacher of some sort, to be a seller, a salesman. Think of Jupiter, sales, big time traveler. In regards to, and back to that point, I know another guy who's the same way, who's real estate. Obviously not quite as big as Andrew Tate, but thinking about Andrew Tate, this here correlate to a soul that desires to penetrate and energize all the desires held in an unconscious state and acting on the remaining desires. Look at the life that guy lives and the philosophies that he's preaching. That to give up the boring life, to take a lot of risks. He's been in jail, I think. Just someone like that is who's really, really acting on his remaining desires, is going to act like that, because this has to get done. This is the final sign. They need to act on these things so that they can move on. And he talks about this pineal gland, and how there's an inducement of images that emanate from imagination and fantasy. The nature of these images are ever changing and shifting. As a result, the Mars in Pisces soul creates an energy system in which there is a desire to act on these images, with each image or combination of images reflecting imagined realities that the soul conceives for itself. Within itself, these imagined realities are quite real. To others, these imagined realities can seem quite unrealistic, even though to the Mars in Pisces soul, they are real. The Mars in Pisces believes in them. And this could be too where, like, if you look at a person who has a Mars in Pisces, you think of someone like Andrew Tate, and you look at the actions that he's taking, and you're like, that's not going to work. That's not going to work for me. And you're probably not incorrect by saying that. Because this kind of reminds me of like all the gurus out there, that the manifestation gurus that would say, oh, this is what I've done and this is how it works and you can do it too. And there's an author of a book about, it's not titled manifesting, but it's like in that area. I forget what it's titled. The author's Ophiel. He talks about this and how he's studied this phenomenon extensively, and what he's discovered is that there's people that have this like natural ability to do this, and then there's other people who don't. They have to work at it. This reminds me of the Mars and Pisces person who has this ability to imagine things and having them come true more so or quicker than a normal person. And that does not mean that that doesn't mean that this is the formula to do it. That doesn't mean that all Mars and Pisces will be able to do it either. But that just reminds me of how many people get fooled because of that. And I think that is the reason why they get fooled, because that's what's actually happening. Here it says, to the extent that they are believed in, these images, dreams, etc., the Mars and Pisces soul will attempt to make others believe in them also. So if it's really working for them, they may go on to sell others on believing in this process. This is what money financial gurus do. There's so many people doing this. It worked for me. It's worked for how many different people? It can work for you too. They're just finding the people that have similar destinies in a sense. Even though such souls can believe in these imagined realities, others will feel that this kind of belief is naive, innocent, and unrealistic. The Mars and Pisces soul can seem ungrounded, as if they are not quite all here, to others as a result. Mars and Pisces operates beyond or above the normal time-space continuum through which most people are defined. As a result, the imagination of Mars and Pisces souls is not limited by the awareness of pragmatic realities, circumstances, or probabilities that circumscribe most other people. This is a very interesting dynamic. On the one hand, Mars and Pisces has the inherent power to manifest and make real the desires within the unconscious that appear as initial imagination. The power of belief can make probable that which would be improbable for others. On the other hand, many of these imagined realities will not manifest into concrete reality, no matter how strong the belief. I'm sure there's Mars and Pisces people that don't have this fairy tale image that I'm creating right now, and that they may, as he's saying here, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't, you could see maybe people think of Mars and Pisces or Pisces in general, of people falling into the other archetypal keywords of Pisces, such as addiction, maybe homelessness, struggle, victimhood, and perhaps being confined in some way, if not at worst in a prison. It talks about when this occurs, that these imagined realities do not manifest into concrete reality, no matter how strong the belief. The soul is teaching itself three things. First, that to simply imagine this or that is acting it out anyway. The desire reflecting that which is imagined has culminated. So that to simply imagine this or that is acting it out anyway. The desire reflecting that which is imagined has culminated. So I guess he's saying there that the reason why it could go either way is because you don't know if the imagined reality has culminated. If it has culminated in the soul, and it's the belief or the imagination is kind of something that's kind of left over from the past. It's culminated. It's past its time. It's on its way out. That is why it wouldn't actually manifest in reality. And this reminds me of a 29 degree symbol. Like I have Mars at 29 degrees, and I think when I think of tennis, of my reality in tennis, I feel like my experience in coaching tennis has been that way. That nothing has really been able to manifest, no matter what I've done, to the way I've imagined it, because it's on its way out. It's no longer serving me. And if I really examine my desires, I really don't have the desire anymore to be a part of that world, at least in the way that I've been a part of it in the past. Secondly, that the egocentric will is not enough to make something happen, but that there's a need to align personal will with higher will. So there he's talking about if you're in alignment with, this kind of goes on with astrology, what we're doing with astrology. If you're in alignment with your higher self, God, you could, or another way to say it is God's will for yourself. If you're in alignment with that, then things will happen. It's kind of like that guy, that magician, occultist, Aleister Crowley had that saying, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." But the rest of it, I think the rest of the saying is something like, as long as it's under the will of God or something like that. And that's what he mean. I think that's what he means by that saying. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law, assuming that what thou wilt is of the higher self, in alignment with the karma, or etc. All these different terms. Because if it's not, then you can't just will it. It's really hard. I mean, you'll run into blocks if you haven't tried this already. And thirdly, to also understand the nature of its desires that are reflected in the soul's need to escape from normal reality. To understand the nature of its desires that are reflected in the soul's need to escape. Escapism as a psychological act of compensation relative to a reality that the soul feels an essential alienation from. When this is the operational dynamic, the soul with Mars in Pisces will then become susceptible to all kinds of addictions. Here he gets into what I was saying earlier. Sorry, I'm getting over a cold here. Hopefully we'll be better in the next couple days. It's this idea of escapism, which leads to addictions. We think of addictions, escapism, as the opposite of Virgo: work, employment, routines. Because addictions can be anything: sexual addictions, drug addictions, internet addictions, video game addictions. These things that are really escape. Anything you think of that's an escape, it's not really doing anything for you. Like exercise can be an escape, like an exercise addiction, but at a moderate level, it's doing something positive for you. Even from a mental level, it could be creating ideas in the mind for you, stirring up the brains and activity. Well, I guess drugs can do that too in moderation. So really, we're talking about addictions. The Mars and Pisces soul must learn to examine the nature of its addictions with the intention of stopping all addictive behaviors. So someone with the Mars and Pisces could be in this state of desiring to understand its addictions and to stop all addictive behaviors in this life. This person I'm thinking of doesn't have Mars in Pisces, but he has a couple planets in the 12th house, and dealt with addiction throughout his life, and did come to a point where he had to really break one of the real bad ones with opium, and he did that after a doctor told him that he wasn't. He told him right to his face. He said, "You're not going to be able to do it," and that really set him on fire. Let's see. That's where we at. 14 minutes. I'm going to have to stop this early because I'm not feeling well. Gets into a lot of the Virgo Pisces stuff. Go back and watch Mars and Virgo and things like that. Sexually speaking, the Mars and Pisces soul desires to experience the descent of spirit into flesh, to experience the power of the divine or God through the energy of sexuality. This is probably on a more spiritual level. Although someone who's not very spiritual could probably have a sense of this still. can manifest as cyclic immersion into many forms of gross or primary sexuality and cycles of enforced celibacy, reflecting the guilt associated with the cycle of gross immersion. For still others, this can manifest as total immersion into acting out all kinds of sexual fantasies of a primary nature throughout life, an unconscious rejection of the desire to evolve into sacred sexuality. When this is operational, the Mars and Pisces soul will desire to be consumed or to consume another during the sexual act. So this idea of being consumed by the other or consuming the other is a popular theme for Mars and Pisces. But it can also be the opposite, an outright rejection of divinity, an unconscious anger at God. Mars, anger, Pisces, God. And that's where you get into the masochism and sadism. Why would a person be angry at God? Misunderstanding of a severe misunderstanding of how the energetic reality that we live in works. And there's no shortage of people that are misunderstanding that. More of this religious stuff. And I'm going to stop it there. If you're interested in more, you can do a reading with me. We can talk about Mars and Pisces and the rest of your chart. And thanks for watching.